us have been at this for more than 20 years, and we're tired. Tired of hearing people think that they have no hope, no future, and that they will simply sit in their cubicles and survive working in IT. Well, we're here to tell you right here, right now, that you can thrive in IT, and we are going to prove it.
Bringing you great stories
About great people in information technology
that it turns out are just like you. Welcome to THRIVEcast.
Welcome once again to another THRIVEcast. My name is DJ Eshelman, your host for today. Welcome to 2021. Hey, it's a whole new year. I don't know if that makes any difference, but it's a whole new year. We're glad you're with us today. If you're here with us in the chat, go ahead and sound off. Let us know you're here. We're going to be talking today about some hopefully not boring stuff, but to make it less boring, let's bring on my co-host, Jeff Pitch. Welcome, Jeff.
21. Woo! We can start drinking again. Oh, wait. Yeah.
Coffee.
Yeah, that's a whole story.
People.
What's that? Oh, coffee. Oh, yeah. Okay. That's what they all say. That's what my wife says.
Yeah, I'm actually going to be doing some fasting for the next week and a half, so I'm tapering down the coffee so it doesn't hurt quite so much. Like literally.
Yeah. Yeah, that caffeine withdrawal can be
It's
interesting.
brutal.
Yeah. Yep.
Indeed. So
Yeah.
I gotta tell you what I ended up doing for New Year's, because I haven't told you yet. And so I know we talked a little bit about it, but what ended up happening was I watched the first Hobbit movie, The Unexpected Journey,
Yep.
New Year's Eve. And right as, I should pull up a picture of this, but right at midnight is when the Eagles were taking them off.
Ah.
So that's kind of fun.
So you kind of did like the what is it, Dark Side of the Moon and Wizard of Oz thing? Is that what that was? Like timing it?
Wasn't intended to be that way. But
that's pretty cool though.
So yeah, cool stuff, man. So, and then New Year's Day we continued, but it was such a nice day. It was like 70 degrees out, and so actually I think I got more than that. So we actually didn't spend the whole day in front of the tube, but it didn't matter, because right after Desolation of Smaug, we were outside and we hear this loud explosion and then another loud explosion. We're like, what? It's probably just overall paranoia about things. And I'm like, do I need to, go? Yeah, I don't know. Like, so
bunker, go.
We couldn't figure it out. But yeah, who knows? So then we went back inside and we're like, hey, let's play a game. And I just happened to have this Yahtzee set from like a promo set from Desolation of Smaug, and so it's a Lord of the Rings Yahtzee game. And we got it set up and we're like, it's kind of dark in here. And I'm looking around. I'm like, okay, weird. It's like the sun's going. I didn't think much of it. Went to go grab something to drink, and I was like, the refrigerator lights out again. I just replaced it, and so I was freaking out. Like so those loud explosions were transformers that had gone out, and so we were out without power for like an hour and a half or something like that. And so, but it didn't matter because we were already going to play a game. So
yeah.
Then we watched the second one a little after that, and we're like, no, we're going to bed. And so then so Saturday, so January 2nd is when we actually watched the original trilogy, which is usually what I do on New Year's Day. So we went straight through all 3 of those, and that was a slog. And so I think I did damage to myself. I'm like,
oh, that's
it's hard to get
what I
motivated.
mean, 12, 2.5. I mean, like 9, 10, 12, 11 hours of movie.
Yeah,
of
yeah,
a trilogy.
crazy.
The extended editions, right? That's
Oh, of course.
yeah.
Of course.
So
Yeah, I've got a
now the amazing thing about Fellowship was that, you know, watching the original cut versus the extended. I mean, that the extended made the movie so much better. There was just like those little few details that it added that just made a huge world of difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
In that.
And actually, it was kind of crazy, like being in New Zealand. We were actually in New Zealand a couple of days before they released Desolation and Smaug. And so that was cool too, to just be seeing all that scenery. And we'd just been on Lake Tanaka and all these kind of things. We were just eating it up. And so like they say that the scenery is another character in the movie, and that's absolutely true.
Oh, absolutely.
It's just a absolutely positively great experience. And I was actually kind of sad though. I was actually hoping to be on a sabbatical in New Zealand, like literally right now. And so that was kind of like a weird moment for me to turn the page on that and say, okay, maybe, 2021, we'll make it a goal for 2021 and make that a thing. So yeah, cool.
Yeah, especially since it's summer down. I mean, not that you guys don't get harsh winters or anything like we do up here in Michigan, but you know, for me going down across the south of the border right now would just, I mean, it's like, oh, nice, warm. Not that you can't get it in the US, but it's true summer.
Yeah.
Down south. So
my hope is to time it pretty well so I can be there kind of for the changing of the seasons.
Oh, nice.
And just, I mean, I go ahead and say this, whatever, but we've considered retiring down there. And so that's one of those things where it's just like, well, when retirement actually is, doesn't really matter, right? I can retire at 47, right? Spend another
Why not?
year just to,
if you've got the cash flow and the resources,
change.
You can work from anywhere. I mean, that's the beauty of all this.
It's like we can do this from anywhere. So there's always those weird thoughts of like, yeah, why not? And so we'll see what happens. But
you are not the first person I've heard reference New Zealand as a retirement spot. I don't know if this is true now, but I know for a long time the cost of living there was incredibly cheaper than here. So basically it's if you're earning American wages and then you retire down there, the US dollar goes further than what they use, so that currency exchange works in the dollar's favor.
Yeah.
So
I when we were down there in 2013, actually rented a camper van for 6 days. It was like $95 a day. It was
nice,
positively brilliant. Yeah, I loved it. Yeah, it was awesome. Yep. So yeah, it was awesome. So what'd you do with your New Year's Day or New Year's Eve, New Year's Day?
I mean, it was just relaxing, not doing much. Stayed up, did the New Year ball drop thing. Outside of that, we actually had some decent weather, so got to spend some time outside. Yeah. So I mean, we didn't do much, but just enjoyed being with family, as every day has been. So, and teasing my 2 kids that had to go back to school on Monday. So, yeah, exactly. So, it's funny though. You mentioning loud explosions in not knowing what they are, and when I was young, and I mean 5, maybe 6, I don't know, but I was really young. We lived out in the country. My family were produce farmers, so we had apple trees and stuff everywhere, farms. But we had So basically we had these huge line of trees across the road from the house. So you couldn't like really see, you could see across the road and that was it. And they were really, really old, nice, tall trees. One day I'm playing outside and I hear this loud, wasn't an explosion, but sounded like I don't even know how to explain it without giving it away, but it was just a very loud or so, and I kept hearing it and it kept getting closer and I started freaking out as a kid. Now I was into Godzilla at that time. I mean, like really, I had this giant Godzilla toy and all this. I thought it was Godzilla coming, I mean, it just was because it was up I could tell it was up up higher. It wasn't like on the ground, but it was a hot air balloon. I'd never seen or heard a hot air balloon. And it was literally coming right over the treetops, but I couldn't see it until it started to clear those treetops. So it was like,
yeah, that is a freaky sound when you're young. Actually, it's a freaky sound as anytime you see that, hearing that whoosh.
You don't realize really how loud that is until you,
really is.
I mean, it's fire burning, yeah well, it's a bit more.
It's hot.
Yeah. So that I always remember that. Right? It's like, I truly thought Godzilla was going to come crashing through those trees.
Hey, speaking of New Zealand, we have a listener / watcher in New Zealand that had a question for us, and so I want to pull up on the screen here. It says, I really want to move from level 2 support kind of role to an engineer role where I can kind of build things for customers or the company I work for. I've been thinking about this for a long time and want to check if we can do some guidance here. He's been doing the Microsoft stack for a while, so he's wanting to know about certifications, or if you should go the CCNA route with, I'm assuming, Cisco, or concentrate on cloud like Azure, combined with Citrix Zen Desktop. It's kind of I thought that was a cool question to start off our conversation today, since we're talking about the IT skills gap. Why not start with a question like this? So
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting because there's a lot of options in there. And the first thing I guess I would recommend is, do you have a passion one way or the other?
Yeah.
Do you like working with the MS stack? Do you like working more with Linux? Do you like the networking? What is it you like to do? And really kind of then that will help you pick a direction first. Now it sounds like this person is either early in the career. I think it said it was level 2. They were doing level 2 support. Yeah. Excuse me. I will always push. You got to look at cloud, whether it's Azure, whether it's AWS, what even GCP. My belief is you can't go wrong. Kind of aiming at least aiming towards that. You talk about skills gap. I think there is a pretty big skills gap right now in regards to cloud. And I think it mentioned in the article we're going to talk about, things like security, data, AI, or big data and AI, and some of those more, I don't want to say esoteric, but things that and I say we as in typical, I think, IT people don't necessarily think about. I know for a fact GCP, Google Cloud, would die to get their hands on people that know, big data, AI, all that good stuff. Infrastructure as a service is it not bad? Is good. Yeah. But I'm going to be honest, if you can get yourself into something like those big ones, or networking is always good. That's never going away. That's another thing. But again, it depends on what you like to do, what your passion is within technology as a whole.
Absolutely. And figuring that part out is, or at least what your current one is, it's never a locked box. When I started, I was very much into, Novell and that sort of thing.
Yes. Yep.
I thought that web was going to be the next thing for me. And so I got into like HTML and all this kind of stuff and figured out that I actually hate it. And then went on to like Active Directory, Exchange, and things like that. And so it can be an evolution of whatever suits your fancy, and figuring that out is going to be the main thing. And so not putting all your eggs in one basket. So when it comes to certifications, I don't know if that's necessarily the right thing to do until you have an actual direction you're headed. And so getting either the skill sets that you want or the passion that you want, and saying this is the technology that really excites me. And like Jeff said, when it comes to cloud, especially, there's so many options right now, but you've got to keep in mind that this is all in flux. There's no such thing as a standard cloud right now, and probably won't ever be. And so cloud is one of those areas where learning a specific technology may not be the best, but learning a methodology is. And so like learning what works in those kind of things, and cloud is pushing really hard towards much more of an agile, or some of them are more DevOps oriented kind of a thing, and that sometimes clashes with that might clash with your company, and you need to learn how to bridge the gap. So that's one. Would really suit you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, you went out on me. But
yeah,
that
sorry
may have been
me. It froze on my end.
Oh, okay.
So it looks like it's restored now. So I apologize for the delay there. We'll fix that in post, maybe. I don't know. But
again, as we say every show, it wouldn't be a THRIVEcast without technical issues.
Right. So bottom line here is that if you don't know what technology you're really passionate about, this is a great time to discover that. It's a great time to be connecting with people as far as networking, figuring out, how things work and how people work within it. Finding somebody to kind of have as a mentor kind of a thing. It's very much we're living in a world has more possibilities for that than we've ever had before. I mean, it's just unprecedented how many opportunities we have right now to network in multiple spaces with no commitment whatsoever. Certifications require a lot of commitment and learning. So if you're not passionate about what you want to do, if you can't tell me 100%, yeah, this is my area, then certifications are the wrong direction. What you're doing at that point is pretty much just chasing opportunity instead of chasing passion. And believe me when I tell you, just like what Jeff was saying, it's like if you're not working in what you're passionate about, ultimately you're going to trip over yourself and you're not going to be happy, 2-3 years from now. And so investing right now in learning what you're passionate about is hands down the best thing you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, the certifications, if you need those, you can always go back and get them. If you decide you want to work for a consulting company or something like that, where you're going out and doing implementations or architecting, and they want you to have those certs, I wouldn't say like you would have to go through like an entire track. If you want to get into a big ISV or something, and you start down the track, that shows your to me at least, it would show, okay, the guy seems to be committed. I think that's more what they're looking for, because they will help you get the rest of the certs. But I definitely, like DJ said, I would not jump into the certs until you figure all this out. Not only what you kind of want to learn and get into your passion, but also what type of company do you want to take that passion and work for? Do you want to work for a third party? Do you want to work for a cloud vendor? Who is it that you're looking to do? So there's a lot of decisions in there, but yeah, I mean, I think we've got it pretty well covered. Follow your passion, figure out what you like to do.
Yeah.
And it's you mentioned, DJ, about the it's so easy to get into a lot of this stuff. User groups are all virtual now. You can join all over the world just to listen in and see what the people are talking about. Maybe it will, spark an interest. Maybe you'll sit there and go, oh God, that's just not for me. DJ was right. Absolutely. Take the time to figure out what you like, and I would say spare no expense, but there's really not a lot of expense that you need to worry about, joining virtual user groups and stuff.
That's the beauty of this, is that there's no upfront here. Not really.
Yeah, you're not having to fly to, a conference and get a hotel room and all that good stuff. All the expensive stuff. So it's take the time and network the heck out of every group, every person you can. And that will go, even if it doesn't work in that field that you say, I don't want to. Having that network down the road is gold, is absolute gold.
Actually, the funny thing is, Jeff, I know you've been noting this as well, but if you've watched prior episodes, and if not, I encourage you to do so. Absolutely, the story is almost the same every single time. It wasn't the person's skill set; it was their network. It was their mentors, their kind of their peers that challenged them to go further or help them go further.
Yeah.
Like, I can think of almost no cases that we've had on where someone just certified their way to success. And no, not even one. Not even one guest that we've had could say that they certified their way to success. But they've all said that being part of a good network and having lots of people that they learned from and grew with, hands down, every single time. So keep that in mind too.
Yep.
Which, interestingly enough, feeds into this article that we're going to feature today. This is from ZDNet. There is a link down in the description. Actually, one thing we'll say, just because we're at the bottom of the hour and it's kind of the time for it, but it also kind of fits into the other parts about this, is we still have the bundle up. If you go to the website right now, it might say that it's expired. Click through anyway. Go ahead and just do it. It's fine. It's still working. And so 2 of my books and one additional one if you're here in the United States. If it's international, I just send them both to you. So that is still available. I'm working on changing things up with that, reviewing some of the books and figuring out that there's some losses we're taking, but I think it's okay. And so we're hoping to keep this deal going, is what I'm hoping for. So we'll know more in the next few weeks. But so I'm just saying, take advantage of it while you can, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep it or not. So there's that. That's another great thing. Learn, not just from me. There's lots of reading out there. There's lots of things you can read from, but there's lots of advice there. So anyway, the ZDNet article. Let's share this on the screen. So I think I can do that. Yes.
Hey.
So the claim here is that the IT skills gap is a giant problem, and they're approaching management with this and saying, here's some moves that management can do. And I found this interesting that they weren't really talking about hard skills at all, not in this article. So there's basically 3 things that they're talking about here. The first one is, actually, let's preface this a little bit, because Jeff, you found this article, so maybe talk a little bit about it.
And this was actually sent to me by a friend of mine, Spencer's son. And really I think the headline is a bit,
misleading.
yeah, it's not exactly what they're talking about, but yet it is. So like DJ said, this is really talking to management, CIOs directly, but as an employee, as a job seeker, whatever, as not management, or even lower maybe lower management, you want to move up. These are all things that you can do the reverse and say, I really want someone that I know that can help me become great, that can show me the ropes, that can do these things.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, I think it covers both. Is there a skills gap? In some cases, no. When you talk about infrastructure, I don't think there's much of a skills gap there. We've been running servers and data centers and networking for years, but like we had mentioned just a few minutes ago, data, AI. Look at what NVIDIA and AMD are doing with with GPUs. There is a huge, not necessarily upfront market out there that is always looking to get people in and going. So that's why, I thought, this would be something good to talk to about, how can you as a manager help your people and like I said, as a employee, a job seeker, what have you, these are the things I would look for in my manager, in my company. So.
Absolutely. And I think, well, gosh, I have an additional thought before we get into that as well, is that I think it wasn't exactly covered here, is this notion. In fact, I'm going to actually minimize this for a second and go back to us. I know which button to push for things. I know how to button. I can do that. Whatever.
Hey.
There's all sorts of options here. But anyway, the thing that I'm seeing a lot of is fear of automation and fear of cloud. And it's funny how the same thing keeps coming up every single time. People are worried about their jobs. It's like, wait a minute. It's not, if your job is in danger of automation, then you've got to take a moment and say, well, okay, what else is there? And there's this kind of scarcity thinking that gets in people's heads. It's like, oh, what I have is what I'll always have. It's completely false. Completely false. You didn't start at the job you have right now. Why would you think that this is the only job you're ever going to have? Get that out of your head. The thing is, what I think that I could go on and on philosophically about what's been going on here, but I think that and fear of being automated out of your current position has kept people from seeing that there is this huge gap out there. Like, there are so many jobs that are being enabled by this automation that people aren't seeing that there are opportunities for that. And so they're not growing into that.
Yeah. and yeah, don't fight the automation, for the sake of, oh my God, I know nothing else. I want to keep my job. You will lose, and you will lose hard. You can't stop progress, right? Whether it's progress or not is, maybe debatable, but in the end, I will always go back to look at the exchange administrators. Yes, they are still out there. When was the last time you met one? I can't remember the last time I talked to somebody and said, yes, I run our exchange servers in our data center, those types of things. But I also know, having gone through that phase with companies as a consultant and hearing people, those admins fight tooth and nail, you're not going to win. You're not going to win. So you have a couple choices. You can fight it and lose, or you could be the automator, become the expert on what is taking its place
Yeah,
you could do that. You could develop skills in a whole nother area if you wanted to. And
kind of
there's options, tons and tons of options.
Tons of options. And the thing is, like, when it comes to automation, there's certain things that can't be automated. And that's analytics, being a quality employee or a quality person in technology. That can't be automated. Not really. Technology skills, okay. Will they become? It's that this old discussion that's been going on for a decade now about whether the next why can't that be automated? Well, the reality is it can, and now it is being automated. And it's just like, if your job just consists of next, are you really being challenged? Are you really growing? So that's the first thing that they're talking about here, is look for instructing management or encouraging management to look for qualities in people. The willingness or ability to click next is not a career strategy. That's not something that's going to get you anywhere. But if you have, like they're saying here, an appetite for growth, if you really want to be not only just successful, I disagree with that, but if you really want to contribute, if you really want to be somebody that's operating at a higher level, that exists in information technology. Everyone you've seen that you admire on this show demonstrates that they're not just there to just exist. They have this desire to make things better, to leave the world better than they found it. It's a common thread that runs through this. And so when it comes to being in management, I actually agree with this, that looking for those qualities and building up those people is a much better investment than building up the people that are just looking for the next thing to click next on.
Well, and it's if you're in that position as an employee, you showing initiative in helping through the transition, in learning these new concepts, this new technology, whatever it might be, shows that you are, a team player. All that, it's all going to be cliche sounding, but in the end, a good manager will find a position for you when your official position, is eliminated, because you took the time to help, to learn, to show initiative, to, back the company. So, really keep that in mind. I mean, it's okay to have doubts about something new coming out and expressing those doubts, but to actively work against it when the company has said, we are doing this, that's, there's that fine line that you can cross, and, you're troublemaker or you're enabler.
Yeah, absolutely. And sorry, I did that completely wrong. Yeah. I think, I agree. I think a big part of this is, things change in information technology. Yes. Things change in management even more frequently. A single article in Forbes can change the world. It's crazy to think that way, but it's absolutely true in information technology, that if something's featured and management is all excited about it, your world can change in a whole hurry. It does happen. And so you need to be someone who's ready for that. The thing I was finding interesting about this is that they were also saying that, and this is something that I've always struggled with kind of outlining here, is like each 2-week sprint includes a half day of personal development. If you're not familiar with these terms, these are basically structuring a work day and a work week and that sort of thing into a what's called a sprint, which is basically just a backlog of work that you're working at. I don't necessarily always buy into this as being viable, but it does at least make people aware of what's going on and things like that. So they're saying that instead of just being all work, you need to have at least a half day of development time, which is a challenge for a lot of companies that are also into like a scarcity mindset kind of a thing to say, we can't afford the time to have people develop their skills. Well, okay, good luck with keeping them as an employee, especially when there's such a skills gap right now. So I totally agree with that. It's like, and I'm not saying that employees should be the ones pushing for this. Quite the opposite, actually. I'm saying that any manager, and we had when we had George on, we were talking about this, that it's not the employee's responsibility to ask for this kind of stuff. It should never be. It should really be, I think, a requirement of saying, you know what, you need to take some time not working and actually work on your developing skills that are useful across the board, whether it's people skills or, like kind of the soft skills like documentation or new technology, whatever it is.
Yeah. Yep. And and that should be part of, it should be part of the employee growth plan within the company, but also, like performance reviews. That should be part of their performance review. That should be a part that is taken seriously. It shouldn't just be a word of mouth. You should be doing this. It should be codified, quantified,
Yeah. And I definitely want to be clear on this too. When I say that, I don't mean the classical, well, people should be developing at home. That's a completely not only archaic but unrealistic attitude. If you're not investing in your employees, they're not going to invest in you. Yep. That's the way this works. I mean, it's a symbiotic relationship here, folks. I mean, that's so. Yeah, I could probably go full on soapbox on this, but that's just part about the article that I completely agree with.
Yeah, and there's that meme. I see it on LinkedIn quite a bit. What is it like? One manager says, if I train my employees, they're going to leave. And then the other one's like, well, if you don't train them, do you really want them to stay or something? Whatever. Exactly. I forget the exact wordage, but that's exactly it. If you're not training employees, and what good are they going to be to progress the company?
The happiest employees I've ever talked to in places that I've done consulting for companies all over the world. And the ones that have been the most happy have been those that have to tell me in the middle of a consulting week, it's like, I can't do anything from 9 to 11 on Tuesday. That's my personal development time. It's blocked off on their schedule. They can't negotiate that. But that solid notion made them more happy. It's a pretty minority. This is, I think, why this is. This is like a sowing what you reap kind of a thing here, or no, sorry, reaping what you sow kind of thing. I always get that wrong.
Hey, we knew what you meant.
Yeah, but I mean,
it very much is the minority, absolutely.
So, absolutely. So let's. I think we beat up on managers. No, we haven't.
But I was going to say that goes right into number 2, which we've already kind of talked about. Making sure people's objectives,
setting people's objectives. But where I don't know if this brought it out well enough is, it's almost like this is like downplaying kind of a coaching role, and that's okay. But mentoring is really kind of only part of the equation. Mentoring is great if the person knows what they want to do, or wants to discover that. But by the way, Lady of the Lake says, beat up on managers, it's okay. And to her manager, she says, just kidding.
I don't think she is. I don't think she is.
It's all good. I think that's Twitch. She's joining us on Twitch, which is awesome. Welcome. So the other part about this is you shouldn't necessarily wait for your management to tell you what your next move should be. It's fine to ask the question and to say, okay, really, let's figure out what's going to work well for you and figure this out together. But if you don't have objectives to begin with, then this next point is kind of a moot point. So just keep that in mind. But that being said, again, encouraging management and leadership to not just do one, but to do both, basically. You got to make sure that they have coaching so that they can set some goals and that sort of thing, and to figure out what's going to be right for them, to kind of see the blind sides for them personally. But when it comes to that, that's not a good role for a mentor. Mentor is like saying, here's what I have done or I would do, or here's how we do things here. That's a good mentor role, not figuring out what you should do. I hope that makes sense.
Well, and I like what I think we're doing with THRIVEcast is more mentoring than anything else. We're trying to pass along our experiences and help people, that type of thing. Coaching is, and I think you're right. They kind of downplay the coaching bit. And I think for employees, like if as the manager, the team lead at Unidesk, I was constantly coaching. I feel like, not in a bad sense in that the guys were horrible at their jobs, but trying to help them refine, whether it was doing a demo, whether it was writing white papers, those types of things, coaching them through, some of the maybe the weaker areas, maybe, whatever and that still kind of sounds bad, but it's about helping people become better at what they're doing. Kind of a current snapshot in time type of thing. But that coaching, if you do it right, carries over into other areas, which is absolutely great. And as a manager, I think more managers need to be coaching rather than managing.
Yeah, and this is actually something else that was kind of interesting on this. Tend to coach them on things like objectives and performance, which is a tragedy of a statement right there. Because that's something where, well, it may not a tragedy. That's probably overstated. But when it comes to coaching, you got to keep in mind that coaching is not teaching. There's really, like we say, there's four elements here. There's the tech mastery. There's the learning a methodology. There's mentoring, and then there's that mindset part of it. So coaching really is much more of that mindset piece of things about, not always just rah-rah speeches and things like that, but identifying like the gaps in the way your mind is approaching these things. And so it's a weird line where a lot of coaches are, much more of that like sports coach kind of thing, which is fine to say, you need to set a goal here and then try to exceed that instead of, being where you are below that right now and just kind of analyzing that, what gets measured improves, right? So there's that. But as far as coaching, it's more of that mindset is kind of where I'm at. So I can see what they're saying about that not being necessarily a responsibility of an employee. I agree with that. I think that should be something that if somebody needs coaching, that's probably something you want to outsource or subsidize, one of the two. But that probably isn't a skill set necessarily within your organization. And if it is, it should be more of a leadership kind of thing, not coaching from the side, coaching from leadership, in my mind.
Yeah, and there's different types of coaching, and I at least from hearing you and I talk, I'm coming at it from one way, you're coming at it from another, and it's there. Yeah, coaching is a broad term, and there's many ways of coaching. I mean, we see it in, like you said, sports. There's not one way of coaching any team. It's done multiple ways. And you do what you can, and you bring in other people when you know that you can't, so but it is an important part of it. And I would never downplay the coaching side, versus mentoring. They are maybe not two distinct ideas, but they are separate in they are very different, I should say. There's always overlap, but they are very different, and each one is equally important.
So I found this interesting, what they were saying about the way they do coaching. So it's three distinctions that I found kind of interesting. He said it's either chores, prayers, or hobbies. So if they're interested and they have an ability, but there's no organizational need, then that's a hobby. If there's an organizational need and they're interested, but they don't have any ability, then that's a prayer. And if there's no interest, there's an ability and a need, that's a chore. I found that a little weird.
Yeah.
Kind of, it's that interesting, that there's a bit of mentality there of that chore thing where it's like, there's no interest, but you have the ability and you have the need organizationally, then that's something that is, I personally like, separating things into the things that you're passionate about and literally only doing those things. So I don't know. I think that's where they were going with it, but they weren't really clear.
The phrasing on it, the prayer bit, I don't quite understand. I mean, when I hear prayer in that context, that's not a good thing. It doesn't give a good image.
And maybe it's something that's like sounds weird to our, jaded American ears or something. I don't know, but that was kind of interesting. But nonetheless, having a system and having things are going to work is probably important. And so getting some sort of system is better than none sort of system.
Well, and I think, I do think in this article, there is very much an old school management style, thread throughout. And I think that paragraph is a great example of it, or, those couple of paragraphs where they're talking about if it doesn't align with the organizational needs, it's to me, it sounded like they're saying it's just not important, or it's very, not that it's not important, but important.
It's like this type of management that I see these days. There's organizational management, there's task management, and then there's people management. That does seem to be the summary of what you're going to find out there. And very rarely are people blending the three very well.
Yeah. Yep. And, when you look at companies, I mean, and I think iGel is actually a really, really good example of priorities outside of the company. And yes, you can always argue that everything they do is always tied back to company and branding and blah, blah, blah. But, sometimes people just do things because they're good people, I mean, it just like everything's not political, everything's not always business related. And I think Jed over there has done a wonderful job, what's the phrase he uses? I can't remember. I'm so sorry. What's that? No, it's like their mantra. Be a oh God, I can't remember.
Sorry.
I'm going to have to look it up. I'm sorry.
There's a belief there that's
of helping others and doing the right thing, those types of things. It's I think that's a very, very important thing that needs to be kept in mind, is that yes, businesses, corporations, they're in business to make money. We all understand that. But that does not mean that is the end all be all of what a company can do.
Yeah.
And that's, I think that's an extraordinarily important distinction, between a lot of companies. You got the old school companies that, everything for a profit, anything and everything. One of the things that really got me is what was it, 2008, when we started going through the recession, is the whole, hi, we've made a profit, but the profit wasn't within our guidance that we had given a quarter ago or whatever. So we're going to let 10,000 people go so we can raise that up. I mean, the recession wasn't caused. I mean, there were causes, but the main reason of the recession was because people were not making enough profit.
Yeah. And
they were still making money. They were still making profit, but they weren't making enough of it. And I look at, that truly rubs me the wrong way. It really does, because
your employees, it tells them that they're a commodity. It really is. There's something just sick about that thinking, and and that's where we're not beating up on managers anymore. Now I'm beating up on leadership. That's C-level stuff, and I ain't afraid. I will come after you. Honestly, there are companies that I just do not do business with because I saw that kind of behavior. There's some that I'm phasing out because I've seen that behavior and it's continuing. And I'm like, well, it's not the culture that I signed up for or that your employees signed up for. So good luck. And so that's probably something we could add to this article. If we were to make a fourth point is, don't be a jerk, or maybe just think of your, and I like companies that don't say employees. They say things like associates and partners and things like that. And just, treating them like people that are invested in the company, because there's no what is it? Time is the ultimate currency, is I think the way that saying goes. And I have no idea who said it, so I can't properly. But time is the ultimate currency. And if you are an employee, in most scenarios, you are trading time for currency. And so you are exchanging a value there. And it just becomes a negotiation point as far as what that value actually is, what's valuable to them, what's valuable to you. But the bottom line is that time is valuable. And companies that don't think properly about that and just think of the work as valuable, those are the ones that get into trouble. So there's a mindset shift with leadership. As much as that I don't like the words trickle down. It's not a trickle. It's not a trickle at all. It's the walls like literally caving in and collapsing in on each other if you're not having that as part of your culture. Okay.
Yep.
Box.
I'm trying to find that phrase that they use. So I when I keep looking off to the side, it's because I'm trying to figure it out.
We'll put this other one that is kind of on the article. So share your knowledge across communities. So I thought this was something that we've said a lot of in a different way. And that's that businesses can share knowledge with each other, and grow. There's this weird, like, competitive, anti-competitive thing that's going on in the tech industry right now. And this was actually kind of something that I was thinking of when we had Brian Madden on the show a couple weeks ago, is that weird kind of that tension between like Citrix and VMware and VMware and Microsoft and things like that. Is that tension real? Not necessarily. Not all competition is I will crush. They're not all. I have a drawing out there. Must break you. It's not like that for every company. A lot of companies really embrace that. If somebody else does something better, that's a chance for us to do it even better than that. And that's a cool style of competition. There's also a lot of collaboration that goes on at a company level. So I guess the question is, why isn't that encouraged at the employee level? So that's kind of what this is more or less, saying, because I think there's a knowledge across communities inside the company is one thing, but because that's what he's talking about with, like, knowledge transfer and things like that. That's great within a company, but I think there's something to be said for companies encouraging people to be part of communities and things like that. That I think that was kind of a miss here. I don't know if you noted that as well. It's like sometimes these words are thrown out that don't mean what you think they mean.
Yeah. You keep using that phrase. I don't think that means what you think it means.
Right. But it is accidentally right here is that, it's worth remembering that cybersecurity is a small industry. Individuals are likely to cross paths again, whether it's an industry event or another workplace. So the mentoring people and then helping stay in touch helps managers and staff. Yeah, that's true, but kind of also a given, I guess. So yeah, I think that staying involved in community is.
Oh, that's huge. I mean, that's huge. I mean, that's just
the beginning of the episode. That's like a big thing. So again, there's this scarcity mentality that's going on, and I've dealt with this a lot leading Citrix user groups. Is that people are, there's always can we not do the thing during the day because my boss won't let me have the time off? And I would dig in and say, why is that? And literally the reason was they were afraid that if you went to that event that you might end up going to work for another company. To which I said, yeah, you should probably go ahead and go to work for another company.
Yeah.
You should fulfill their prophecy, because it's just that's just wow. Why would you not want someone to grow in their? Yeah, it boggles my mind. I can't even fathom what a missed opportunity that is.
So what I was referring to with iGel, thank you, Douglas DeCamp. I had to text him to figure it out. It was have a servant's heart, and that obviously aligns with DJ what you talk about with leave the world a better place. It's that's the mentality of that company. Yes, they're going to make money. Yes, they want to make money. Yes, they want everyone to make money. But they are also very, very conscious of their employees, the environment, giving, those types of things. And, I believe they have a very good track record of that. So that was the phrase, have a servant's heart. And we need more of that. I mean, truthfully, just in general, across the world. It's just actually, I mean, this isn't necessarily true. I don't have KPIs for that right now, but in a previous director role, I actually did grade a person's community involvement. It was a KPI. I expected them to contribute to the community as a whole, whether that be in their specific area of interest or not. Whatever it was, I wanted them to demonstrate that they weren't just keeping their knowledge to themselves and weren't just, an island. Yeah. And the reason why is in my career, in my life, and this is true today. I mean, it does not matter what level you are. Mm-hmm. You're always going to have questions that come up that are going to be beyond what you can Google. It's going to happen. And sometimes you need to have conversations to tighten down what you're going to Google. It does happen. There are things that have been happening. Like I got called into a thing recently of doing some troubleshooting that honestly, it's still beyond me. I still don't know. I don't think what I did actually fixed the problem.
I think what he did was beneficial, but I don't think it's what actually fixed the problem. I think the problem just kind of went away for a couple of weeks until the next billing cycle or something like that. I think, but I mean,
that sounds like a time bomb there.
yeah. But the more that kind of things come up, the more being engaged in a community helps. Kind of, it's not groupthink. It's more of like, well, we're going to talk cryptocurrency in a couple of weeks, and I kind of think of it like that. Like there's this greater set of assets all around able to work together.
We have more access to information, not just Google information, but real people experience and their information. And being part of a community, you are able to pull potentially from thousands, tens of thousands of people that have had experience in what you have a question about.
Yep.
That's not a group thing. That's just community. It's that sharing that helps everybody.
Yeah. And it's, well, and when it comes down to it, what I've noticed, and this is something that I've been very cognizant of in the last few years, is that people are more likely to not only ask, but give answers where there's community. And I think there's a lot of folks that we're, in some collaborative talks with that might agree with this. I won't say their names right now, but there's a few other communities out there that have been noticing this. If they don't have a strong community element, it just becomes a forum. Well, forums are dying. We're not doing things on forums anymore. We're doing things on like Slack and Discord. That's where troubleshooting is happening. That's where all those conversations are happening right now. And I think it's not just a convenience thing. Far from it. I think it's more of just, I'm going to ask somebody I trust. They're part of this community. I'm much more likely to be able to trust them. That's another kind of currency right there. Trust is a kind of currency.
Well, and I think too that there's a lot to be said about potential real-time feedback back and forth. Forums, you ask a question, you wait until somebody maybe answers or asks you another question. It's a game of waiting, for someone to respond. And while that can happen on Discord and Slack, you more often are going to be able to carry more of a two-way conversation faster and quicker to get to a potential resolution.
Absolutely. And it's also like a language that's common when you're used to being in a certain space. This is almost every time I ever saw somebody getting upset on a forum, it's because somebody else was like using all caps or things like that, in some of these modern forums, it's just like, it's not going to happen. Like that, just they know better, and we don't see a lot of this, fortunately, right now. But it's like YouTube comments, gosh, some people are the worst. It happens. If there's not a community behind that, then there's worse. But even on YouTube, there's people that I follow and subscribe to, that there is a kind of almost like a language that's formed around that group of people, and they defend their own, and so if somebody comes up and starts being obnoxious, they will do everything they can to kind of form a block and a chain around that. So it's the other side of it too. There's an element of community that's helping each other out. There's also like a personal element of this too. I mean, there's been times, and Jeff, you and I know this firsthand, because that's kind of how we became connected in the first place. When life gets tough, reaching out to somebody in your community, all of a sudden you have deeper thing because you know that they've walked in your shoes a little bit, and it's a much more powerful bond. And I don't want to say it's necessarily always a healthy thing for people to have like a place to vent about their boss. That's probably not always the greatest thing, but being able to kind of talk through challenges and find someone that has, be much more likely to find somebody that has walked through that properly. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think of all the discussions that have been had about like, gosh, should I become a consultant? And we're like, yeah, there's all sorts of things you can consider with this. And I'm not going to give you an easy answer, but we're going to give you all the things that we've encountered and let you make a good decision, that sort of thing. So community is very valuable. And so I think what he's saying is, what he's saying is that it's valuable. What he didn't do was say that people should absolutely, as far as from a management perspective, encourage that directly and kind of have that as a actual measurable thing. And that's kind of what I'm saying is I would bolster that language a little bit. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think it's the way, a lot of companies need to move more towards giving back. Part of it is the U.S. mentality that we see here, right? I mean, business. You go over the pond, you tend to see more of a balance between family, community, and work. But I really believe, if the U.S. is going to continue to grow, continue to expand with businesses and markets, we need to pay more attention to the human side of what all of this does to the, to me, to you, to everyone. And those businesses that I think do those things are, I think, typically better off from a retention standpoint, from a, purely business standpoint. You get people that are loyal more to the company than they would have been if you just treat them like a number, an employee, like a employee.
The truth is people want to believe,
Yes.
They want to believe that what they're doing with their time matters,
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if they're just a factory worker or IT or leadership or whatever. People want to believe that their time has been well spent. They may not connect with that being possible. They may have some things in their life that are keeping them from believing that that's possible at all. But deep down, everyone wants to believe that their time has been well spent, that they haven't just been a waste, because that's just not a good place to be.
Yeah.
But that kind of comes down to what we said kind of very early on in very early episodes, is making a distinction between being IT people and being people in IT. That
Yes.
that first title, that first part of the title matters. If I go around saying I'm Dr. DJ, then people are like, oh. If I go around and say I'm DJ who is a doctor, I'm like, oh, okay, that's weird. That order matters. So if we're IT people, then we feel like a commodity. If we're people in IT, then we're recognized as a value. So that's the other thing, managers out there, be cautious. We matter. Final thought?
Final thought. No, I don't have anything today. Oh, I do want to mention one thing though. And I should have sent you the link so we could post it on. Had an article posted today. I will get a link from ACE, which is a MSP. They've been interviewing a number of people in tech. I wrote a quick article for them. So like I said, I'll post the link and go read it. Let me know what you think. That's it. So I want to thank those that came. Lady of the Lake, I'm still waiting on Excalibur to be pushed up from the water. And I hope everyone has a great week, and we'll chat with you all next week.
Awesome. Cool. Well, yeah, thanks again for being here. If you're viewing on YouTube, go ahead and click that like button to let the algorithm know that this is the kind of content you like. If you didn't like the content, then just leave. Just go. If you're viewing on Twitch, like Lady Lake is today, that's very awesome. We didn't even really realize this was a thing, so it's cool to capture that. That's very awesome. So you can subscribe there. I believe it's thrive-it.com/Twitch, I think, to get to the Twitch channel. So yeah, thanks for being with us. And one quick thing before we go, just to remind y'all that I do still have that book bundle up for the next few days. Go grab those while it's cheap. I believe $48, I think, is what I had those for. So it's worth a lot more than that. So grab that while you can. So it's been a pleasure to be here with you. We'll see you next week for another THRIVEcast. Until next time, remember, it's up to you to leave this world better than you found it. Cheers, and have a great, great afternoon.
Thank you for joining us for another edition of THRIVEcast. We truly hope you've enjoyed the experience and have learned a lot from it. Now, what we'd want from you next is to join us at thrive-it.com, where you can get subscribed to our multiple channels, get subscribed to our newsletter, and do more to get yourself to where you want to be in your career and your life in information technology. If there's anything we can do to help you, please give us an email at support@thrive-it.com. We'll see you next time.